We need to hurry. The Renaissance is gonna come, and we'll be painting with most grievous dispatch. I will open the latch and get to her snatch. Good evening or morning, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City. And this morning we are going to be doing a commentary for everything you always want to know about sex, asterisk, uh, that you were afraid to ask. But you were afraid to ask, yes. One of the longest titles in motion picture history. Also happens to be for a pretty funny movie. Whether or not you're a Woody Allen fan or not, I think there are comic bits in here that I think will work for everybody, despite what your knowledge is on these type of subjects and everything. And obviously, what Woody Allen is satirizing here are self-help books. And everything you always wanted to know about sex but were afraid to ask was a book that came out in 1970 from an author, Dr. Rubin, who basically Woody Allen basically just looked at the book, looked at the title, looked at the table of contents, and said, "You know what? I can make a movie out of this. I'm not even going to read one word of it." And we'll talk about how this book kind of inspired this most bizarre of adaptations. Actually, it's not really an adaptation. It's really just a movie that kind of borrows the title and borrows some of the titles of the chapters. And then Woody Allen kind of changes a few other chapter titles and everything. But this is a movie that I saw very, very young. I was like 11 or 12 years old when I saw this. Too young? Maybe. I mean, the truth of the matter is that by that time, I had already watched movies like Porky's and everything. And look, I mean, by the time I got to everything you always wanted to know about sex, I obviously I didn't take the title literally. I wasn't expecting this movie to be like any. It was a joke. It was all a joke on the part of Woody Allen because he wanted to make fun of the author, Dr. David Rubin. Rubin obviously did not like the book and had the movie and had like one of the weirdest reactions that I've ever read from somebody who is an author that had a movie based on one of their books. It's so bizarre. But at any rate, why don't we go ahead and get started here? I think we're all ready to have some fun. I think you'll be very impressed by the cast of characters here and their retrospective performances. There's a lot of familiar faces here and a lot of funny familiar faces. And I think here again, regardless on your feelings on Woody Allen and his cinema, because we will be talking a lot about Woody Allen and his cinema as we move through this commentary. The truth of the matter is, I do think that there are some of the funniest bits I've ever seen in a movie in this. It was all meant as a joke. It was all meant as a self-help book satire. And I think Woody Allen, for better or for worse, accomplished his goal. And we got some very funny moments coming up here. So at any rate, we are paused on the MGM logo, and we will start on 3, 2, 1, and play. Now, I had already seen a lot of Woody Allen's films by the time I was like 12, 13 years old. I mean, I had watched so many films up until that time, from the silent era to the modern day. And I would just end up just going to the library and just renting movies that I've not seen before. And just, I'd watch this movie. And Leonard Maltin gave this movie everything you always want to know about sex. Here again, one of the longest titles in film history. I believe it's been eclipsed. I'm pretty sure in the last 50 years that this the sheer length of this title has been eclipsed. I can't really think of any off the top of my head except for maybe the Borat sequel, which I'm not even going to look that up and read the entire title to that. But anyway, should be some very familiar names here in the opening credits, which it's Night of the Lepus all over again. I'm telling you. I did a commentary on that so-called horror movie about a bunch of giant rabbits that invade this small town. But here, Woody Allen is just basically having this entire title sequence over these bunny rabbits just being rabbits. And I remember I was watching this with my mother, of all people, I know. And she and my father were huge Woody Allen fans. They went to the cinemas practically every year over the course of many, many years to watch the new Woody Allen movie. I don't think this was one that they talked about often. And so when I pop this on and we have this, the song, there's something wild about your child that's so outrageous, let's misbehave. Great classic 1920s tune. And and we just see all these bunny rabbits. And I remember asking my mom, Mom, why are there so many rabbits on the screen? And she just looks real quick at the screen. It's like, oh yeah, because they like to have sex a lot. I'm not going to go into my sex education because it's irrelevant. But let's just say that it was kind of a spark to look more into it. I mean, I didn't think that I was going to learn anything necessarily true about sex with this film, believe it or not. I mean, I knew Woody Allen was a prankster. I knew that he was a comedian, that from the book, everything you always want to know about sex. Yeah, I mean, the title and a few of the chapters, that's all he takes. He doesn't even look at the book. I don't think I know there's other adaptations out there that have that weird relationship with the book where it just dismisses it entirely. And ironically enough, Night of the Lepus is another one like that, because the book that's based on is a Australian Cold War book. And the movie with the giant killer rabbits and everything had nothing to do with the book, nothing whatsoever. Producer Charles H. Jaffe, Woody Allen's longtime producer. And it's just the simple combination of this song, Let's Misbehave, the rabbits, and these titles with the asterisks. I mean, it's simple, and I love it. And here we are with skit number 1, Do Aphrodisiacs Work? Now, yes, this is an anthology movie. I've already done a couple of anthology movies this year, and of course they were horror films. They were horror film anthologies where there were like 4 or 5 little horror stories into one, big film. And those are very different than comedy anthologies. Comedy anthologies, tend to rely on, okay, so how many of the segments do you think were funny? And let me put it this way. When I was a kid and when I saw Woody Allen come out with this fool's outfit, I just started laughing my ass off. Okay, look, I did. Okay, I don't feel ashamed of that at all. Look, the fact that Woody Allen is playing a unfunny fool that is trying to win the approval of the king, of the queen, and their royal minions sitting around the table having a feast and everything. And of course, littered with Hamlet references. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I think my father kind of laughed at all the jokes that I didn't laugh at, just because I didn't get them. And he knew exactly where these gags came from. I mean, and he knew that, Woody Allen was this this literate and everything in terms of what he has studied and everything. Anthony Quayle plays the king, and as we will soon meet, the queen, played by Lynn Redgrave, who, by the way, when I first saw this movie, I was like, yeah, I want to give the queen an aphrodisiac too. I don't think I knew what an aphrodisiac was when I saw this segment, but by the end of it, I was kind of like, oh, so it's just something to make somebody, sexually aroused or whatever. Okay, I get it. And of course, later on I found out, oh, well, there's no real aphrodisiacs out there, maybe with the exception of chocolate. I don't know if I guess a lot of people consider chocolate an aphrodisiac, but it's kind of a myth. I found out later, or maybe I'm just talking about my ass. I don't know. I mean, like I said, this was all 30 years ago when I first saw this movie, and I just took away all my interpretations from it. But there is some just wonderfully funny dialogue in this entire opening first act of the movie. It's, just, referring to the queen's, boobs as tomatoes and all that. I was like, oh, wow, I've never heard somebody refer to breasts as tomatoes before. It's just, maybe that's why I found it funny. I was like, okay, that's new. The Royal Tomatoes and Mixed Company. Now, this is a mix of like, early English nonsense and like, modern day sexual slang, like copping a feel. It's a weird and an odd mixture that somehow, makes for a very funny combination. I fell on my bells. uh, and so here are some Hamlet references for you: to be or not to be, that is the congestion. A consumption be done about it, of cough, cough. Jesus. Comedy is all about reaction, okay? This is something that is equal to like Monty Python and the Holy Grail type of funny, I think. But of course, largely because of Woody Allen's reputation, this film, like many of his others, are not really mentioned anymore. They're never in the discussions, and they never, very few people bring up his films now. It's almost become very taboo, in terms of talking about Woody and his films. Look, and the thing is that, of course, I do plan on doing future Woody Allen commentaries, so it's not something that I want to dwell on. But look, the elephant in the room, just to get it out of the way very early and very quickly, is the fact that a lot of people think that he uh, basically, quote unquote, molested his daughter, which of course a lot of people, think, in terms of those terms. But the truth of the matter is, I do not believe that he molested anybody. I think the real monster in this case is Mia Farrow. I don't think that she's gotten enough criticism. I don't think that she's gotten near enough scrutiny. And personally, I think it's just has been a massive lie for the past 30 years that was came out of the mouth of a woman scorned. And, obviously because he ultimately married Sunyi Previn, who was not his stepdaughter, not his daughter, surrogate or otherwise. They had zero blood relationship whatsoever. And from everything that I've read, and everything that's been, I think, confirmed, is that they didn't have much of a relationship beforehand. A lot of people bring up the term grooming, which, look, in Woody Allen's case, I honestly think that people have been condemning an innocent man for 30 years. There were periods where I stopped watching Woody Allen movies, not necessarily because of what happened in his personal life, but just because of the fact that, I was kind of tired at that point on certain. I got tired of his character. I got to admit, as funny as I think Woody Allen is, I got a little tired with his character in the later years. But I still went to go see in the theaters. I went to go see movies like Everyone Says I Love You and Deconstructing Harry, which I think is one of his best films. And of course, Match Point, which is a great dramatic thriller set in England. And I believe that Woody considers that his personal favorite of all his movies. And he's made 49 films. He's currently making his 50th and final film in Paris, which will close out his long career. His legacy is probably going to be mixed and muted at best. But like I said, I think that, just to put aside the issue for now, the point of the matter is that I think Woody Allen should be exonerated of all charges. But unfortunately, social media and the public, thanks to mainstream media and just other, sources that are quick to dismiss other things that are never mentioned, it just amazes me that he is still being condemned. And, but look, that's just me. I do not believe that he is guilty of anything. Maybe aside of being a slightly pervy old man who ended up marrying a 21-year-old woman when he was 57. To me, that's about the extent of his guilt. If you want to disagree with me, that's fine. But here again, I personally think that he should be exonerated. and eventually his filmography reevaluated. Now, all that aside, because I don't want to bring it up again until another Woody Allen commentary, maybe for Play It Again, Sam, or Bananas or something like that. But here we have the very, very beautiful Lynn Redgrave, who is the younger sister to Vanessa Redgrave. And she passed away several years ago. I remember when she did ultimately pass, and automatically I thought of everything you always want to know about sex, but we're afraid to ask. Do aphrodisiac's work. And yeah, she was born in 1943, passed in 2010 at the age of 67. Among the other films she's done, she was in the original Tom Jones, the Best Picture winner Tom Jones from 1963, where she played the role of Susan, and that was essentially her credited film debut. And then she was later in Girl with Green Eyes, Georgie Girl, The Family Way, The Deadly Affair, Smashing Time, The Virgin Soldiers. Last of the mobile hotshots, which is probably Sidney Lumet's worst film. Not because of her, but it probably his worst film. Long Live Your Death, Every Little Crook, and Nanny. She did the same year as this movie. And then she later played Xavier Hollander in The Happy Hooker, which was a big hit in 1975. And she was also in The Big Bus, Gods and Monsters, How to Kill Your Neighbor's Dog, Unconditional Love, and the Jane Austen Book Club. And she was also in Kinsey, believe it or not, starring Liam Neeson. She was the final interview subject in that movie. Very interesting. And she was also in Confessions of a Shopaholic. And her last movie, she did the voice of Nancy in My Dog Tulip. But very beautiful woman, as you can definitely see. And what did you know? She has a chastity belt. The classic chastity belt. I don't think I knew what a chastity belt when I watched this as well. So admittedly, I learned what an aphrodisiac was, and I also learned what a chastity belt was. I will open the latch and get to her snatch. Just to see Woody Allen in that outfit, just saying these lines is just pure comedy gold. Absolutely pure comedy gold. Now, one of the best moments is coming up here when he actually breaks the fourth wall. But not before. Let's think of something quickly, because the Renaissance will be here and we'll all be painting. I screwed up the line when I opened up the commentary. I got it right there. She's got some food stuck between her teeth. Obviously, these are the dumbest guards in the world. So, and Lynn Redgrave's reactions are just, absolutely priceless throughout this whole thing. And what did you know? The king is in another room sleeping his ass off. I guess taking his kingly nap, I guess you could say. I don't know. I thought he was going to retire to the royal bedchamber afterward, but that's what he said at the feast. I mean, the portals of ecstasy. You do have got portals of ecstasy, haven't you? By a loud banging. Not that kind of loud banging. It's amazing. I was going through a lot of the reviews of this film, a lot of the contemporary reviews and reviews today. And what I found very ironic is that despite the title, the thing is, this movie is almost purposefully unerotic. It's very, very bizarre. It's almost as if Woody Allen, knowing that, I don't think, here again, he made this movie as just a total joke, and he just wanted to basically get back at Dr. David Rubin. Seeing the hand in the back of the chastity belt, that's an image that it's going to be hard to shake that off. It's oh man, I always get my hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. So here, Lynn Redgrave and Woody Allen are going to try to pass this off, even though his hand is stuck in the back of the chastity belt. Making my mood most foul. But real quick, we should talk about Anthony Quayle here, who plays the king, because believe me, a lot of these characters are going to go by very, very quickly. Born in 1913, passed in 1989 at the age of 76. British actor and theater director, nominated for an Oscar and a Golden Globe for his supporting role as Thomas Wolsey in the film Anne of the Thousand Days. He also played important roles in such major studio productions as The Guns of Navarone, Lawrence of Arabia, The Fall of the Roman Empire, Operation Crossbow, QB7, and The Eagle Has Landed. And he was knighted in the 1985 New Year's Honor List. In 1984, he founded Compass Theater Company that he inaugurated with a tour of The Clandestine Marriage, directing and playing the part of Lord Ogleby. The production had a run at the Albury Theatre in London. With the same company, he subsequently toured with a number of other plays, including St. Joan, Dandy Dick, and King Lear, with himself in the title role. And Lynn Redgrave doesn't have to say anything. I mean, her reactions are just, they're priceless. They're pricelessly funny. Woody Allen, of course, of all people, knows that comedy is all about reaction. Now, this is one of my favorite lines. Well, and maybe my favorite line in this whole segment, but "Aye, my lord. Remember if you said if I ever was in town, I should look up your wife?" But it's amazing. I can imagine a bunch of millennials watching this movie and finding it just so like the tamest thing in the world. It's very weird. This movie has an R rating, which, by the way, few Woody Allen movies have R ratings. And the truth is, it barely earns the rating. It's almost as if, just because we see the word sodomy on screen, I mean, obviously with these kind of sexual terms and the MPAA, has always maintained that, America is a very puritanical state. It's almost like, oh my God, we can't have our kids reading a word called sodomy, because they would probably ask what it is. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, aside from like all the sexual language in the movie, it's very, very tame when it comes to nudity and actual sex. But of course, of course, with this segment, which is, well, it should be, the name of the segment is "What is Sodomy?" Now, the truth of the matter is it should be renamed "What is Bestiality?" Because, look, for those of you who have never seen this, Gene Wilder, the great legendary Gene Wilder, one of the funniest men who ever lived, is going to play a doctor who falls in love with a sheep. And if you would think that nothing would have topped the opening segment with the king and the queen and the fool and all the glorious Hamlet references, but here we have Gene Wilder in his prime. This was right after he did Willy Wonka, and this was right before he did the 1-2 Punch of Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. And he plays just a regular old medical doctor with a beautiful wife. And he's visited by somebody who says that he just fell in love with a sheep. And this is one of the longest silent takes I've ever seen. Woody Allen, here again, he knew that Gene Wilder could carry this entire sequence, and it's just like, it's like, just let the camera roll, let him do his thing, let him react. And that's the thing. This is just absolutely glorious right here. Now, the actor playing Stavros Milos, as I believe his name is. Yes, Stavros Milos is an actor by the name of Titos Vandis. He was a Greek actor, passed away in 2003 at the age of 85. In 1962, he won the Best Actor award for the film Poliorikia at the Thessaloniki International Film Festival. Vandis left Greece with a dictatorship to power and lived in the United States for 24 years. He appeared in over 250 plays before making his Broadway debut in the Tony-nominated musical On a Clear Day You Can See Forever, which was later filmed with, of all people, Barbara Streisand and Jack Nicholson. He originated the role of Themistocles Kyrikos, a Greek shipping magnate who believed in reincarnation and planned to leave his fortune to his future self. Boston Globe critic Kevin Kelly wrote that Vandus played the role with marvelous finesse and that the character was rather like Zorba as a businessman with $4 million. He was in the original Broadway cast and led the title song in Ilya Darling, a musical based on his film Never on Sunday. In 1970, Vandus joined the cast of Man of La Mancha as Sancho Panza at the Martin Beck Theater. He also played the title role in the musical Zorba at the Paper Mill Playhouse in Millbourne, New Jersey. Critic W.C. Flawhart wrote, his portrayal of the Greek vagabond with an eye for the girls has an earthiness which brings reality to the role. And in the same year of Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, he played an uneducated coal miner on Ironside, who sought Ironside's help in discovering the murderer of his daughter. He admitted that, quote, a drama was easier for him than the musical stage. I suppose this part can be considered a change of pace for me, but as an actor, I find myself considering each role I play as a separate entity. During the days of my early training, I often played old men. In fact, I relished the opportunities. Today, of course, as I grow older, I wish the positions were reversed. And in The Exorcist, he played the uncle of protagonist Father Damien Karras. Vandus wore a hat in one shot that obscured his face. As producer, William Friedkin felt that Vandus's face would be connected with his previous role as Milos in this movie. Yes, so that is Titos Vandus, as and pretty much when he leaves, we're pretty much not going to see him again because it's just going to be Gene Wilder and the sheep. Wait till you meet her. I don't believe this. Quality carpets, yeah. Because he just said, "Oh yeah, my brother, he has a carpet business." You know, really, really. Now, this film was actually banned because of this. This movie was banned in Ireland on March 20th, 1973. A cut version was passed in 1979 and released theatrically in 1980, removing both a bestiality reference, which is when he says, the greatest lay I ever had, referring to a sheep, and a man having sex with a bread loaf. The ban on the uncut version was eventually lifted. So yeah, this movie was actually banned in Ireland. It's all a joke. It's all a joke. It's ridiculous. It's so absurd. I mean, if this is not Woody Allen's most absurd movie, I don't know what would be. Maybe What's Up, Tiger Lily? Maybe. But no, this is a totally absurd joke on Woody Allen's part. And, you know, of course, back in 1972, there were some people that just didn't find the joke very funny. But it's amazing that, you know, also in 1972 that, you know, sex had practically come out of the closet at that point. I mean, we had Midnight Cowboy, which was the first X-rated film to win Best Picture. But 1972 was also the same year that Deep Throat hit theaters in the summer. And to this day, I mean, it actually made more money than Titanic, if you would believe it. Maybe Avatar. I don't know. It's one of the biggest box office sensations ever in the history of film. But of course, you know, we don't really acknowledge it because it's a dirty little porn movie. But no, that's what I'm saying, is that for the first time, respectable middle-aged women actually went to porn theaters in 1972. And there's a great documentary out there called Inside Deep Throat, which, you know, looks at that entire period. And I love it when they dig up some footage of an old woman, just, you know, this woman in her 80s or 90s, you know, she had just got out of seeing Deep Throat. And she said, you know, I liked it. I wanted to see a dirty picture, and that's what I saw. But I want the right to see that dirty picture. And that's the thing. When the old lady, you know, says, look, enough is enough. See, that was when the floodgates opened. And you know, of course, you know, pornographic theaters became very, very lucrative during the 1970s because finally people can go see movies with sex in it that wasn't, in the guise of education. See, that's the weird thing. Before this movie, everything you always wanted to know about sex, a lot of people learned about sex through educational films, which were the most, I mean, that's the thing. There was like a narrator that would just document, okay, some men find their wife's buttocks very stimulating visually. It was so dry and it was so basic and it was so embarrassing. It was cringe inducing. That's the thing, is that this is how people actually learned about sex, was they would see these stupid education films, if they were not watching pornography for that matter. But I mean, that's the thing with Deep Throat in the summer of 1972. That's it. I mean, that was when America truly lost its innocence at that point, and it became, sex became a normal everyday topic of discussion instead of being a taboo subject that should be kept behind closed doors and everything. That's the 1972, we had a cinematic orgasm in every way. I mean, of course, we also had Last Tango in Paris, which is a film that I refuse to watch and do a commentary on for my own reasons. And, but like I said, yeah, 1972, that was the year. That was the year. So Gene Wilder just feeling a sheep. I can't. It's too good. It's just too good. If we give it a chance, he brings them right into the hotel. And remember that Woody Allen wrote all this and directed all this. And Gene Wilder is just playing it. He's just, this is all Woody Allen, even though we see Gene Wilder on screen. Excuse me. I mean, it's so utterly absurd. I just can't imagine anybody being flustered or even, triggered by this in any way. I mean, maybe some, extreme religious people. I don't know. I even in 1972, this was all just a giant gag. It was all just a giant joke on the part of Woody Allen. But okay, so the book that this is based on, look, I had the option of actually going to the New York Public Library and actually looking at this book, and I chose not to because I figured, well, it's not really an adaptation. It's just, Woody Allen just basically having a joke and making fun of self-help manuals and all that. I'm pretty sure I would have expected what I got if I did open it up and read it, but I decided to pass on it. But the book, it's written by this California psychiatrist named David Rubin, who evidently is still alive, by the way. I think he's like in his late 80s now. In fact, he's about the same age as Woody Allen. And it was one of the first sex manuals that entered mainstream culture in the 60s, had a profound effect on sex education and in liberalizing attitudes towards sex. And it was among the top 20 all-time bestsellers of the 20th century in the United States. Despite those asterisks, I still opted to pass on reading the book. I decided, yeah, I mean, a lot of what is in that book is probably irrelevant to everything that is on the screen anyway. Sure, I would have had something more to talk about, but I didn't want to go out of my way to actually go ahead and read it because evidently the book is now that rare. Buying a necklace for Daisy. Oh, isn't that adorable? Now, coming up here is probably, I mean, there's a few jokes in here. I mean, Bananas is also guilty of it as well as Play It Again, Sam. There's a couple of jokes that are coming up that are, some people would say, a little unfortunate. I still think this is one of the funniest jokes in the movie. which is coming up here, which is basically the briefest of courtroom scenes. And what the judge says is, I mean, when I first saw this, I died. I died at that point. I mean, and I had already seen Willy Wonka. I had already seen Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, and I was already a huge Gene Wilder fan. So watching this entire segment was just an absolute delight. Yes, we actually see a sheep with sexual garters on, or whatever you like to call them. I'm not an expert on the erotic wear, but so, defendant did commit an adulterous act with a sheep, and it's most distasteful in view of the fact that the sheep was under 18 years old. Look, the joke still works. Okay, I'm sorry. The joke still works. Now, of course, in Bananas, there's that legendary scene with Sylvester Stallone, when he comes on the subway and gets into an altercation with Woody Allen. Right before that, there's a gag there's a joke that he tells in a shop where he's picking up dirty magazines. And he puts all the magazines on the table, and the guy behind the counter is like, he's going through them. He's like, "Oh, hey, Ralph, how much is a copy of Orgasm? This guy wants to buy a copy." And then Woody Allen actually says, and I'm not kidding, "I'm doing a incestuous study on perversion. I'm up to advanced child molesting." Now, okay. I'm not trying to trigger anybody. I'm just saying that's what he actually says in the movie. Just because he jokes about it doesn't mean he actually partakes in it. And that's what I'm saying. Even with those quote unquote, they're not evidence in any real, I think, legality. I don't think so. I look, the point is, in comedy, there's no limits. You joke about anything and everything. It doesn't matter what the topic is. And comedians should have that free reign, but with of course, a responsibility as well. I mean, there's some comedians that have taken it too far, in terms of, maybe taking care of hecklers and that kind of thing. And of course, we end with Gene Wilder on the streets drinking Woolite. And that looks like it's straight from a commercial from the early 70s when it comes to Woolite. Why do some women have trouble reaching an orgasm? Now, here we shift gears again. Now, Woody Allen is really going all over the map here, because now, for this third segment, we basically have a spoof of Italian cinema. Specifically, Woody Allen champs his love for Federico Fellini and other directors that he admired and he grew up with, and he got basically all his education from. And this lovely lady with Woody on screen here is actually Louise Lasser, who was married to Woody for about 4 years, from 1966 to 1970. And they ended up getting divorced in 1970. However, she still acted in Woody's films. I mean, she was in Bananas. She was very funny in that. And here she's in the third segment. But oddly, after this, she didn't do any other Woody Allen movies except for Stardust Memories. That's the one exception. And even then, she only had a bit part as a secretary. But go easy on the hymen. Oh. So this is basically Allen's homage to Italian filmmaking in general, and specifically a film called Casanova 70, which was a 1965 Italian comedy film produced by Carlo Ponti and directed by Mario Monicelli, and stars Marcello Mastroianni. And that was a big hit in 1965. It was nominated for the Best Original Screenplay, but also he's also specifically going for a Boccaccio 70 as well, which is a 1962 comedy anthology film directed by Vittorio De Federico Fellini, Mario Monicelli, and Luchino Visconti. Now, that's about the extent of all the direct references, because I am not familiar with a lot of those films. to be able to point out every single little reference. But at the same time, that's what Woody Allen does here. And I think this is actually a fairly funny segment, even though I'm not intimately familiar with what Woody Allen is visiting and doing his own little spin on here. You know, I still admire the effort. I still find it actually quite funny. But here again, like some of these other segments, you know, maybe it's a few minutes too long. And that's the thing with anthologies, it's always a mixed bag. And it doesn't matter what genre it is, whether it's horror, comedy, whatnot. And this is only one of 2 anthology films that Woody Allen has made. The other one was New York Stories, where the other 2 stories were done courtesy of Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola. But Woody's segment was the best. Trust me, Woody's was the best one. But at any rate, so I mean, the thing is that, of course, this being all a giant joke, it almost doesn't matter, you know. I mean, here again, these are all just little scenarios that Woody Allen thought in his head. He wrote them down. He gave each of them a punchline, and he ran with it. Now, there used to be an 8th segment. Now, there are 7 segments in this movie, but there used to be an 8th segment where I need to double check here. But oh, that's right. I need to go over here to double check. But the segment that was cut out, and he basically cut it out because he couldn't think of a button for it. He couldn't think of a proper ending for it. But it involved basically him and Louise Lasser playing Black Widow spiders. Give me just 1 second here. A segment that was filmed but eventually cut out was What Makes a Man a Homosexual? The sequence had Woody Allen as a common spider and Louise Lasser playing a Black Widow. After a mating dance on the Black Widow's web, the spiders make love and the Black Widow eats the common spider. Allen cut the sequence as he was unable to find a suitable ending for it. Apparently, though, some production stills from it have been used for promotional materials for the movie, even DVD covers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, Woody Allen saw Dr. David Rubin promoting his book on which this movie was based on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. When asked by Johnny Carson, "Is sex dirty?" Rubin replied, "It is if you're doing it right," which is a line from Allen's Take the Money and Run, which was his first film as director, writer, and producer. Allen was offended by Dr. Rubin using his joke, so he made this movie as a form of revenge against him. Dr. Rubin did not like the movie. In fact, this is what he said. This is what Dr. David Rubin said about the movie version of Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask. And I quote, "I didn't enjoy the movie because it impressed me as a sexual tragedy. Every episode in the picture was a chronicle of sexual failure, which was the converse of everything in the book." He just didn't find the joke funny, you know. He just didn't find the joke funny. I mean, just, simple as that. And real quick, since I know the Gene Wilder segment is already finished, but according to the book Woody Allen by John Baxter, Gene Wilder once said of the making of this movie, quote, "It was like walking on a Bergman set. People talking in whispers, serious looks on Woody's face. He communicates through silence," unquote. Look, Louise Lasser is a beautiful woman. And look, she is absolutely still with us. And she's still working. I mean, that's the amazing thing about Louise Lasser, because she's primarily known for a title character on a soap opera satire called Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. I have never seen it personally, but from what I understand, it's basically what she's primarily known as, even more so than her work with Woody Allen. But she also served as a voice actor for Allen's 1966 spoof dubbing the Japanese spy movie What's Up, Tiger Lily. Lasser cites Allen as, quote, a tremendous influence, but it's the influence to make me be me. I remember the day he said, quote, I do jokes. Your comedy is attitude. And her other 1970s comedic turns in cinema include Such Good Friends, 1971, and Slither, 1973. On television, she earned credits on Love American Style, The Bob Newhart Show, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. She also appeared in the 1973 TV movie version of Ingmar Bergman's The Lie, and was featured as Elaine in the episode of the NBC romantic anthology series Love Story. And her breakthrough role came as the unhappy, neurotic titular character in the soap opera satire Mary Hartman, which aired 5 nights a week for 2 seasons from January of 76 until July of 77. During the program's run, Lasser became a household name and appeared on the covers of Newsweek, People, and Rolling Stone. In his biography, producer Norman Lear said that the casting of Lasser took less than a minute after Charles H. Jaffe, also the producer of Everything You've Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask, including most of Woody Allen's filmography. He told him that there was only one actress that could play the role of Mary Hartman. Lasser initially refused the role, but later acquiesced. Lear says that when she read a bit of the script for me, I all but cried for joy. Louise brought with her the persona that fit Mary Hartman like a corset. Yeah. So, and she's still working. I mean, she since then she's done other movies like Rude Awakening, Crime Wave, and Blood Rage, and Requiem for a Dream. And I'm not going to mention that one. But she also did a movie just this year for A24 called Funny Pages. So yeah, she is still definitely working, still doing stuff in the business, and she's in her mid 80s now, but yeah, she's still working. So yeah, the whole joke of this segment, because I know that we've is that she can only have an orgasm when she has sex in public. That's the whole idea here. Now, I've heard that this is a fetish for certain couples. Hey, I wouldn't look twice, but at the same time, I mean, it's amazing what people would go, how far people will go to actually, exercise those kinks, you could say. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what would be people's reaction if people were having sex on the subway? Oh, there would be people that would complain, but I mean, it's better than somebody having a gun on the subway, right? Yeah. And Woody Allen, he's wearing some different glasses, and this is a rarity. Usually you see him with those black, thick rim glasses and everything. Here he plays a variety of he wears a variety of other glasses, which is fairly interesting. I mean, this is completely one of the rare instances where Woody goes completely against his persona. This is not usual, nebbish Woody Allen. This is just a Italian spoof, basically, where he gets to speak a little Italian and everything. Now we come to a couple of segments which I think are I think the next 2 segments are really weak, and that is just me personally. To me, this film starts out very strong, very high, very funny. With Gene Wilder and everything, and then we have that wonderful Italian segment. Now we come to a film to a segment that I think stretches its joke way too far. Even though this segment is only 9 minutes, it feels like it's 3 times as long as that. And look, Lou Jacobi, fine actor, he has his fans, and I'm sure they love him in this segment. But look, the truth of the matter is, even he couldn't really bring this home for me. But Lou Jacobi basically plays a guy who wants to wear his wife's clothes. This is sort of like the same scenario as in Glenn Glenda, which is Edward D. Wood Jr.'s very first movie, and it's It's actually kind of a progressive classic in some ways, even though it's also considered one of the worst films ever made. But I highly encourage everybody needs to see Glen or Glenda at least once, just to hear Bela Lugosi from a castle with lightning and everything saying "Beware, beware." But anyway, so Lou Jacobi is a Canadian character actor. And his film debut was in the 1953 British comedy Is Your Honeymoon Really Necessary? With the country's blonde sex symbol of the day, Diana Dors. Other notable films in which he appeared include The Diary of Anne Frank, Irma la Douce, the Billy Wilder film, Penelope, 1966, and Arthur as the Lucky Florist, My Favorite Year as Benji's Unsophisticated Uncle Morty, and Amazon Women on the Moon as a man named Murray who got zapped into the television and is wandering through sketches looking for his wife. And he's also in Barry Levinson's Avalon in a semi-dramatic role as one of 4 Russian brothers trying to build a fortune in Baltimore in the early 20th century, with the memorable comic relief catchphrase, you cut the turkey without me? After he would notoriously arrive late to family Thanksgiving dinner every year. His final film was IQ in 1994, where he played a philosopher/mathematician, Kurt Gödel. He guest starred on such television shows as Playhouse 90, Too Close for Comfort, Tales from the Dark Side, Love American Style, That Girl, Sanford and Son, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and was a regular on The Dean Martin Show. In the summer of '76, Jacobi was the star of the CBS comedy series Ivan the Terrible, in which he played a Russian headwaiter living with 9 other people in a small Moscow apartment. Comics Christopher Hewitt, Phil Leeds, Alan Caldwell, and in her TV series debut, Nana Visitor, here billed under her birth name Nana Tucker. Harvey Korman appeared as a Soviet bureaucrat in an uncredited cameo at the close of each episode. The executive producer of the short-lived series was noted comic Alan King, and the comedy series only lasted 5 episodes. In 1999, Jacobi, who was 85 at the time, was inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame. On the occasion of the dedication, film critic Roger Ebert interviewed Jacobi, later writing, I look at Lou, and I'm not afraid to be 85, if I can get there, in Lou's style. And he was also one of the voice inspirations for the Futurama character Dr. Zoidberg. Yeah. So he made other movies in the 50s, such as Charlie Moon and Song Without End. And he was also in Next Stop Greenwich Village, Choo Choo and the Philly Flash, The Boss's Wife, and I Don't Buy Kisses Anymore. And his wife in this film, get her name up real quick. I believe she was played by, you know what? I don't think I can find her. Elaine Giftos. I think, is it? No, that can't be her. Yeah, I should have double checked, right? But like I said, there's a lot of characters in this movie. There really is. Damn it. Yeah, I can't figure what it might be. Actually, I probably would have to double check over here. Just give me a second. But yeah, this segment just is really stretching the whole, like, big deal. I mean, I'm just gonna say it, big deal. I mean, like, really? I mean, back in '72, I guess, sure, but big deal. Okay, there's a man wearing women's clothes. I mean, whatever. There's nothing intimidating about that. And to tell you the truth, I mean, I don't know if, depending upon how the device is used, but I just don't think this is a very funny segment. It just doesn't work. I just don't think. I guess the whole idea was that, of course, Lou Jacobi was also the star of Woody Allen's Don't Drink the Water. And I guess he had the idea is like, oh, I know, you can play you can play a man who just wants to wear your wife's clothes. Well, that's a half funny idea. It's not really executed well, I think, here. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Glenn or Glenda is a masterpiece compared to this segment. This just it doesn't work at all. I just don't think it works at all. I mean, Lou Jacobi, here again, beloved actor. I'm pretty sure he still has his fans, but yeah, I think this is the weakest segment in the movie. Which here again, it's in the center of the movie, so it's almost like, okay, you start real high, then you go down to the bottom, and then you go all the way back up to the top again. And from what I understand, Woody Allen, he played with the editing on this film. You know, he was constantly switching all the segments. He didn't know what order to put the segments in, and up until he turned in the film to United Artists, he just kept on, you know, tweaking and playing around with the segments. You know, but I think he got it right here. I honestly, you know, in my opinion, this segment as well as the next segment are the two weakest segments in the movie. The other 5 segments I think are pretty damn funny. And yes, 4 out of 5 of those segments have Woody Allen in it. But yeah, this is one of the few instances where I just don't. Yeah. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's barely even amusing, you know, but, you know, it goes by fairly quickly. And that's the benefit of anthologies, is that if, you know, one doesn't work, there's one right around the corner. And the next one is actually going to be a bit, it's very unique. And here again, you know, it's very different from the other segments, which is pretty cool. I just, for some reason, the humor in that segment in particular just doesn't work for me. It did not click for me at all. It didn't click for me as a teenager, and it doesn't click for me now, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, the look on the police when you removed your hat. What are sex perverts? So, you know, this is a black and white kinescope 1950s. You know, here we have you know, a commercial where these two guys are, you know, advertising shampoo or whatever for Lancer. Yeah, it's for this, you know, What's My Perversion show, which is basically a take on What's My Line. Yeah, What's My Line? That was a panel game show that originally ran in the United States on the CBS network from 1950 to 1967, originally black and white, later in color. The game uses celebrity panelists to question contestants in order to determine their occupation, i.e., line of work, with panelists being called into question to identify a weekly celebrity mystery guest while blindfolded. It is one of the on the list of the longest running U.S. primetime network television game shows, originally moderated by John Charles Daly and most frequently with regular panelists Dorothy Kilgallen, Arlene Francis, and Bennett Cerf. What's My Line won 3 Emmys for Best Quiz or Audience Participation Show in 1952, 53, and 58, and the Golden Globes for Best TV Show in 1962. More than 700 episodes exist in kinescope recordings, filming a television screen in 16 millimeter, which was the only way moving pictures and sound from spontaneous, unscripted television shows could be preserved on a long-term basis before the digital era. See, that's what's fascinating about a lot of these 1950s shows, that a lot of them were filmed live. That's what I'm saying, is that, yeah, it's very fascinating. Every episode between July of 52 and September of 67 existed for a long time in the archive of producers Mark Goodson and Bill Todman, but some of these were lost in 1975. After the Sunday night series cancellation by CBS in 67, it returned the syndication package for local television stations and committed to airing it 5 days a week. The version originally hosted was by Wally Bruner and later by Larry Blyden. It was seen by viewers from 68 to 75. There have been a dozen international versions, radio versions, live stage version. Revivals in the United States were proposed several times, but all of them failed to go past the planning stages. Wow. New episodes have not been created for American television since December 12th, 1974. So What's My Line was still, they were still making new episodes when Everything You Always Want to Know About Sex was still, you know, when it was playing in theaters. And here we have Jack Barry. who a lot of people are familiar with. I'm not so much familiar with Jack Barry as some other people, but he was in fact a game show host. He passed away in 1984 at the age of 66, and he served as a host of several game shows in his career, many of which developed along with Dan Enright as part of their joint operations, Barry and Enright Productions. Barry's reputation became tarnished due to his involvement in the 1950s quiz show scandals. Yeah, Robert Redford made a great movie about that in 1994. You should all check it out. And the ensuing fallout affected his career for over a decade. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he hosted the game shows By the Numbers, Adograms, and Pick and Choose, as well as a 2-hour talk show titled LA Today in 1964. KTLA TV was purchased from Paramount, an investment group headed by Gene Autry, which later controlled the California Angels, now the LA Angels, baseball team, and Channel 5. Autry overhauled the station's schedule and dropped most of the game and variety shows, and Barry lost his job with the station in August of 64. He spent the next 2 years working primarily as a game show consultant to other producers, and Barry even dabbled in acting, playing newsman on the premiere of the mid-60s TV series Batman. He also assisted with directing several episodes of Batman in 66. He also did a guest reporter spot on the TV series The Addams Family. In December of 1968, Jack Barry embarked on an idea that would launch his national comeback and eventually become the most successful game show project of his career. He developed and produced 2 pilots for The Joker's Wild, emceed by Alan Loudon. CBS held off on picking up the series at first. Finally, in 1969, Barry became a host again for ABC's The Generation Gap, replacing original host Dennis Woolley for the final weeks of the series. In mid-69, Barry entered the limited association with Goodson Todman Productions to collaborate on new game show creations, but the partnership was short-lived. Barry even brought Dan Enright back as Joker's Wild executive producer toward the end of its first network run, mentioning Enright at the end of the final CBS installment. The two renewed their working partnership full-time in 1976, launching Break the Bank, hosted by Tom Kennedy. When ABC canceled the show despite decent ratings, Barry himself hosted and produced the show for weekly syndication during the 1976 to 77 season. And Barry is portrayed by Christopher McDonald in the 1994 film Quiz Show. Now, we also see Regis Philbin, appearing as themselves, including Regis Philbin, of all people. No. He did pass away. Yeah, he passed away in 2020. Yeah, we just missed him, but he did $1 Million Password and other stuff like that. America's Got Talent. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Very, very familiar television personality, and this was actually his film debut. This was actually Regis Philbin's film debut, and everything you always wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. And surrounding him is Robert Q. Lewis, who is another comedian and game show host and actor, as well as Pamela Mason, an English actress, author, and screenwriter, as well as who's the other one? Tony Holt. Yeah, so Jack Barry, Tony Holt, Robert Q. Lewis, Pamela Mason, and Regis Philbin. They all appear in this segment. Now, here again, this whole rabbi joke, it just did nothing for me. So we're already an hour in. Are the findings of doctors and clinics who do sexual research and experiments accurate? Now, here's another great Woody segment. And this is sort of like a spoof on the Mad Scientist films, like Frankenstein, and also the 1950s sci-fi boom. This is essentially a spoof of those. Here again, completely different universe, as like the Italian film spoof and the the Hamlet the Hamlet segment in the beginning and everything. This is here again, completely different universe. Which here again, it makes for, it's really fascinating that all of these segments, they actually do feel completely different. There's not really any connections between the two. There's not really any inside jokes or winks or anything like that. I mean, sure, Woody Allen does break the fourth wall on occasion in the very first segment, but aside from that, they all these segments work independently of each other, and they all have different comic tones, believe it or not. Some of them are more absurd than others, but now this lady right here, this actress right here is Heather McRae, known for basically her role in this movie because she didn't do much else aside from this. The Connection, 1973, Bang the Drum Slowly, Secrets of Three Hungry Wives, and Life with Mikey with Michael J. Fox. She also appeared in a singing role in Robert Altman's 1975 film A Perfect Couple. She also appeared in several television roles, including parts in Starsky and Hutch, Frasier, and The Sopranos, and as the judge who marries Miranda and Steve in an outdoor ceremony on Sex and the City. She has played continuing roles on the daytime serials The Best of Everything and One Life to Live. A veteran of the Broadway stage, she has appeared in Hair, A Catered Affair, and Falsettos. And she is the daughter of motion picture, stage, and television stars Sheila McRae and Gordon McRae. For those who remember, Gordon McRae starred in two Rodgers and Hammerstein musical of the 50s, Oklahoma and Carousel. Yeah, he starred in both of those movies. In 1983, McRae and her mother had a cabaret act, The Inner Circle in New York City. A review in New York Times called the two the oddest cabaret couple, noting their styles of entertainment differed and that they had alternated in the spotlight rather than performing together. McRae performed a solo cabaret show, Songs of My Father, in Chicago in 1999. In it, she sang songs associated with the father and told about his experience in music. And she is still with us. She is in her mid-70s now. And so automatically we have, we basically have a Frankenstein's move with Igor or Igor, or I guess Igor, I guess they call him. I know, I keep thinking of Young Frankenstein, so I get them all confused now. But Igor, yeah. And see who plays Igor here. Ref Sanchez is this guy's name. He was an American actor, appeared mostly in television shows and small acting parts, worked as a fashion photographer in the 50s through the 1970s. In October 2005, his photo collection, spanning a career of 40 years, was donated to California State University. And he did small parts on TV shows such as Bonanza, Maverick, Alias Smith and Jones, Get Smart, Beretta. And the only other film he appeared in was Let's Kill Uncle Before He Kills Us. But the real guest star of the segment is none other than John Carradine, who plays the role of Dr. Bernardo. And in fact, he's actually, I think he has second billing next to Woody, essentially. But legendary actor, considered one of the great character actors. In total, he holds 351 film and television credits, making one of the most prolific English-speaking actors of all time. And among those films, his very first film, uncredited, was in 1930 called Bright Lights. He was also in Tolerable David, Heaven on Earth, The Sign of the Cross, 1932, which is this great Cecil B. DeMille movie starring Frederick March. That's really good. And that movie is famous for Claudette Colbert taking a bath in ass's milk. It needs to be seen to be believed, trust me. Now, he was also, John Carradine, he was also in Murders in the Rue Morgue and The Invisible Man, The Black Cat. He was also in Cleopatra with Claudette Colbert, Les Miserables, The Bride of Frankenstein. He played the hunter at the Hermit's Cottage. And he was also in Anything Goes, 1936. Under Two Flags, also 1936. Captain's Courageous. Hound of the Baskervilles, 1939. In the 1940s, he then started to get a lot of credited roles, specifically in films like The Grapes of Wrath and Swamp Water and Hitler's Mad Men, Revenge of the Zombies, Voodoo Man, The Invisible Man's Revenge, Bluebeard, Captain Kidd, House of Dracula, the Universal film House of Dracula, The Court Jester, 1956, The Story of Mankind, 1957, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, 1960, and Billy the Kid versus Dracula, The Emperor's New Clothes, Monsters Go Home, Dr. Terror's Gallery of Horrors, Blood of Dracula's Castle. Yeah, like Boris Karloff, he made a lot of these cheap horror films. And in the 1970s, he did movies like Bigfoot and Blood Legacy and Silent Night, Bloody Night. Also did the same year, as well as Richard and Portnoy's Complaint. And he was also in Boxcar Bertha. We did talk about him earlier in the year when we did Boxcar Bertha. Terror in the Wax Museum, Moonchild, The Shootist, which was John Wayne's last movie, The Sentinel, Shockwaves, The Bees, Missile X, The Neutron Bomb Incident. And then finally in the 1980s, he did things like Satan's Mistress, The Secret of Nymph, The Ice Pirates, The Tomb, and his very last film, well, he did Peggy Sue Got Married, but his very last film was in 1987 called Evil Spawn. So yeah, but like I said, he did over 350 films. Long storied career, as big as Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing. Yeah, the legendary John Carradine. And of course, he's talking about doing all these wacky experiments. Here again, they're all just jokes. I mean, whether you find them funny or not, it all depends on your sense of humor. Yeah, John Carradine is really coming off like a demented pervert here. I mean, he makes Woody Allen look subtle by comparison. He makes Woody Allen look like the most normal guy in the movie. He's literally insane. Literally insane. You will be the subject of my newest experiment. I love this. I love this. I know. It's horrible, gang rape jokes, I know, but in here I have 20 scouts. I want to measure your respiration when they gangbang you. Oh, and look at the Boy Scouts here. It's like they're just waiting. But look, obviously, this is not going to happen. I mean, Woody Allen is going to protect her and everything. But here comes Igor. Yeah, it's funny. His name is Victor, like in Victor Frankenstein, even though he's he's not Victor Frankenstein in this segment. But yeah, John Carradine is probably his most demented in this movie, but it's still memorable as hell. But wait, we still haven't gotten through all the familiar faces yet. I mean, the last segment, which is right after this one, we're going to see some cinema treasures. Trust me. Boom. This is all just classic stuff, I think. I mean, I really think all this works in its own weird way. A lot of people compared, this is as close to Mel Brooks as, Woody Allen ever got when it came to his style of comedy. So here again, I said that this was like a spoof of not only Frankenstein movies, but also the 1950s and their monsters and aliens and everything. So what is the monster in this film that you're wondering? Well, of course, if you remember a little film called The Blob in 1958, starring some guy named Stephen McQueen. I don't know. Yeah. That's what his name is, Stephen McQueen. I don't know who he is, but yeah. But this whole segment could have been just its alternate title could have been The Boob, as opposed to The Blob, because What is the it's a giant tit. It's a giant tit, ladies and gentlemen. This is absolutely glorious right here. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to go home and get my catcher's mitt. They're all boys in my family. And of course, you know what better line to follow up this this bit with? What they're going to run into the sheriff's station. We've seen this in every 1950s sci-fi movie. Sheriff, I want to report an escaped tit. It's already killed 2 people. It's a colossal tit, a tremendous tit. We don't have time to argue. While we're standing here, the countryside's being ravaged by a colossal boob. Now, okay, I managed to find out a little bit of information about the actual boob and how they did this, but it's as simple as you can imagine, really. Bringing that up right now. See, where is it? Where is it? The giant breast was manned with a person inside moving it around, being transmitted instructions. That's about as all as I was able to gather about the creation of the giant boob. But I'm sure there must have been. Was he handling the milk too? I mean, was he doing the squirting of the milk and everything coming out of the nipple? Yeah, I know. The cream slowed him up and the milk killed him. Yeah. Up against a very clever tit. I am not ashamed. I am not ashamed. I still think this shit is funny 50 years later. It really is. Don't worry. I know how to handle tits. Yeah, bad taste, Woody. Bad taste, Woody. So, have some other things right here. Woody Allen once famously said the following quotes about sex. Quote, "It's the most fun I've ever had without laughing. Having sex is like playing bridge. If you don't have a good partner, you better have a good hand. I'm a practicing heterosexual, although bisexuality immediately doubles your chances for a date on Saturday night." Mm-hmm. When his character in Love and Death is told sex without love is an empty experience, he responds, "Yes, but as empty experiences go, it's one of the best." Also, Allen once said he included in this movie, quote, "Every funny idea I've ever had about sex, including several that led to my own divorce," with Louise Lasser, who, of course, was in the third segment, the Italian spoof segment. This was the first Woody Allen movie to use for credit sequences the display font typeface of Windsor Light Condensed, which would be regularly used on all of Allen's movies from this movie onwards. Yeah, I remember Bananas had those very colorful, different kind of titles. I'm not sure what the font is on that one, but yeah, this was the first one where he employed the Windsor Light Condensed font. Mm-hmm. Victor Shakopoulos, the same name as Alan's character in What's New Pussycat. Okay, so you were so magnificent out there. Oh God. Woody Allen interviewed Lon Chaney Jr. for a role in the movie. This was possibly for the mad scientist role that went to John Carradine. Elliot Gould and producer Jack Brodsky were the first people to option David Rubin's book, but opted to sell it to United Artists once they determined that the text was too hard to film. It suggests that the reason was due to when Gould and Brodsky dissolved their partnership. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the very last. This is like the Gone with the Wind shot right there. That's exactly what that was. The very last segment for the movie is what happens during ejaculation. And I think to a lot of people this is the absolute best one. Maybe so. I mean, considering the fact how tight it is and how funny it is, I don't know. I am partial to the first one as well as the one that we just watched with John Carradine. But this is a real winner right here, and I think it's been ripped off several times in other films, notably uh, "Can I Do It Till I Go Blind," which was Robin Williams' unofficial motion picture debut. But anyway, Italian food coming down. But no, this is a whole mission control sequence where we see what happens inside the male body when sex happens. And so, yeah, it treats male sexuality as if it was, operated by a mission control. That's basically the whole joke of the movie, but it's a pretty damn good joke once we get into it here. Oh yeah, she's lovely. You should take a look. Yeah, very, very science fiction. I mean, this is a very, like Fantastic Voyage type of science fiction. Notice how, everybody's wearing just like these white uniforms and everything, sort of like out of a James Bond movie or something. Uh, now, the woman in this segment who, right here, yeah, this is a woman by the name of Erin Fleming. And she had a pretty sad story in that, well, she started out as an actress. She was a Canadian actress, and she's best known as the companion, secretary, and manager of comedian Groucho Marx during the last years of his life. Now, her influence and relationship with Groucho Marx was considered controversial. Groucho and Fleming met in 1971, right before this movie, and she was initially and extemporaneously hired as his secretary. Eventually, she assumed the role of his manager. Many of Groucho's friends and colleagues acknowledged that she did much to revive his popularity by arranging a series of personal appearances and one-man shows, culminating in a sold-out performance at Carnegie Hall, which was recorded and issued on a best-selling record album. She also successfully lobbied for the honorary Academy Award Groucho received in 1974. Several of Groucho's friends and family, including his own son Arthur and youngest daughter Melinda, charged Fleming with embezzling money and pushing the increasingly frail Groucho to the limits of his endurance, largely for own personal gain. Charged Fleming with, and there were also charges of psychological and suspected physical abuse. Suspected. Groucho's friend, writer Sidney Sheldon, wrote a roman clef on Fleming's relationship with Groucho titled A Stranger in the Mirror, published in 1976. In a 1993 television adaptation, Lori Loughlin performed the role inspired by Fleming. Groucho died on August 19th, 1977, 86 years old. Litigation over his estate was eventually resolved in 1988 in favor of his three children. Fleming was ordered to repay $472,000 to Groucho's estate. She was later diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, arrested in June 1990 on suspicion of carrying a concealed loaded firearm, which she brought into the West Hollywood Sheriff's Office. She spent most of the last decade of her life impoverished, homeless, delusional, and in and out of various psychiatric facilities. She took her own life in Hollywood on April 15th at the age of 61 in 2003. And yeah, that's the sad story of Erin Fleming. But on the brighter side, we also have a very funny bit part performed by Burt Reynolds, of all people. What's the matter, Sydney? Maintain hand on breasts. Yeah, so they're trying to get this guy an erection. Obviously, there's Burt Reynolds right there. Burt Reynolds later said that he had absolutely zero interaction with Woody Allen during the making of this movie, and I think I would suspect that this was maybe something on MGM or UA's part term to just populate this movie with familiar faces, hoping that it'll actually sell. I don't know that for sure, but it is very interesting that this movie has as many familiar faces as it does, particularly at that time. I mean, like Burt Reynolds in a Woody Allen movie, you wouldn't expect that, or Gene Wilder, even for that matter. Even though, I'm sure that. Well, it's interesting. I'm pretty sure Gene Wilder would have said no had Woody Allen asked him to do a segment with him, because he would have been like, well, like Mel Brooks, I don't want you to be around distracting me, and and that's what I'm saying is that, I mean, I think that second segment works beautifully with just Gene Wilder and not Woody Allen. But Woody Allen also plays a sperm in this movie. Uh, what if it's a homosexual encounter? Oh, so yeah, he plays a live talking sperm, and he's surrounded by other sperms that are about to jump out. And what he says when he jumps out, when he ultimately jumps out, why that line is not in the AFI's 100 greatest quotes, I have no idea. I mean, the interesting thing is that I don't think this is one of Woody's absolute best. I think it's really good. Like I said, there's a couple segments in the middle that I think kind of bring it down just a little bit. And here again, I mean, considering the fact it's an anthology and that Woody was being a little bit experimental with his jokes here, I'm willing to overlook, the fact that this film is far from perfect. But look, as a certified Woody Allen fan, I would rate this pretty highly. Because like I said, there's a lot of laughs in it. There's a lot of laughs in it. I mean, and here again, I will say again, whether you're a Woody Allen fan or not, there are bits in here that are impossibly hilarious. I find it hard to believe that no one would laugh at these jokes. If you didn't know that Woody Allen wrote and directed this movie, or even was in a few segments, oh, you would laugh. You would laugh regardless. We found the conscience tied to a chair. And believe it or not, this movie is about to end. I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that we have only 5 minutes left to go. It's in and out. It literally is an in and out movie. I mean, yeah, ironically enough. So yeah, Burt Reynolds. Oh, and this is Tony Randall as the leader of Mission Control. He's about to go back and look in his periscope here at Aaron Fleming, writhing in ecstasy or whatever. What if he's masturbating? I'm liable to wind up on the ceiling. Get a grip on yourself. Oh, get a grip. I'm doing my parents for dinner. But yeah, Tony Randall, who I need to mention real quick, he's also in what I think is one of the funniest movies ever made, which is Gremlins 2, The New Batch. He actually gave the voice of the Brain Gremlin, where he was conceived as like an Ivy League, graduate and everything. And Tony Randall just killed it. He just killed that movie. I want to talk to you about what's going on in this room, because I think that there are some excellent ideas here for the future. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know I mangled that, whatever. But yeah, his first film was Saboteur, the Alfred Hitchcock film back in 1942. Had an uncredited role as a cameraman. And he was also in Pillow Talk, The Brass Bottle, Robin and the Seven Hoods. And after Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask, he also did My Little Pony and The Man in the Brown Suit, The Gnome's Great Adventure. And one of his last movies was a movie called Down with Love, a really good little romantic comedy with Renee Zellweger. And yeah, the final Woody Allen line, well, at least he's Jewish. Glorious. Absolutely glorious final line before he jumps out. And of course, Aaron Fleming has to have a cigarette when everything is all over. It's like, I'm sorry. Having trying to have sex in a car is the most uncomfortable thing in the world. I'm sorry. It's so uncomfortable. I mean, look, I'd rather like fucking a football stadium full of people than a car in a parking lot. It just, but then again, I mean, look, with drive-ins, that was how a lot of people mated back then. But yeah, that is the sad story of Aaron Fleming right there. I mean, uh, how um, who knows how abusive she was to Groucho Marx? I mean, we'll probably never know. But I kind of feel bad for her. Actually, looking at everything I've read about her, I kind of feel just a little bit bad for her. Ultimately, what happened to her and everything. But anyway, so that is everything you always wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. We're back with the bunnies as we get the cast list right here. Yeah, Woody Allen played Victor, Fabrizio, the Fool, and Sperm. Yep. And John Carradine, Lou Jacobi, Louise Lasser, Anthony Quayle, and Tony Randall. The lovely, lovely Lynn Redgrave. Oh. And Burt Reynolds was the switchboard. Okay. The legendary Gene Wilder. The sad Aaron Fleming. And see, Regis Philbin should be popping up. There he is. Yeah, Regis Philbin as himself. Okay. So anyway, thank you for joining me this morning for this commentary. My next commentary will be Thursday morning at 1 a.m., which will be on Divine Madness, which is basically it's it's like a concert tour movie with Bette Midler. And it's what she did immediately after the Rose in 1980. So we'll be doing a commentary on that on December 1st, which is her birthday. And then after that, we will be doing on Sunday night. I've already started reading the book, and I'm already a third of the way through it. Sunday afternoon, we are going to do The Right Stuff. So my next two commentaries will be Lad Company Releases, Divine Madness, and The Right Stuff. So thank you again for joining me for everything you always wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask. And you all have a great evening.